On the road with the Western Ag Network. Brought to you by AgRisk Advisors.
Well, hi everybody from the Western Ag Network. I'm Russell Nimitz alongside Lane Nordland. And Lane, obviously we're on location. We're in San Diego, California, if you can believe it. We're in town for the Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting. And before we go too much further, we want to say a big thank you to AgRisk Advisors for providing our radio, television, and social media coverage this week from Southern California. Of course, for AgRisk Solutions for farmers and ranchers, just jump online and visit them at agriskadvisors.com. As always, though, a lot of important topics being covered at this meeting for cattle producers across the nation.
You know, that's right, Russell. Producers from across the West and the nation gathered here this week, creating policy for the future of the livestock industry. A few of those issues we talked with producers about included these higher cattle prices that folks are happy about, but also those critical issues like waters of the U.S. that seems not to be going away anytime soon, along with other things like lab-grown fake meat, and of course that very controversial Bureau of Land Management's conservation rule that Western ranchers are very concerned about, but also ranchers that aren't from the West are learning more about it and advocating on producers' behalfs across the West. So we have some great conversations coming up with producers from here in Western Ag Network country talking about these and multiple issues impacting the industry.
Yep, and we're going to share them right after these messages.
Ready for a real PRF partner?
He was willing to track us for a year and provide that data back to us for a year. That's a guy making a pretty big investment.
At AgRisk Advisors, this isn't our first rodeo. We are one of the most experienced in pasture rangeland forage. Honesty, commitment, trust. Many companies use these words. At AgRisk Advisors, we earn them.
As our conversations continue here in San Diego, as the cattle industry summer business meetings continue, we're catching up with South Dakota rancher and president of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, Todd Wilkinson. And Todd, we were able to catch up just a few weeks ago in Havre, Montana, as the Montana Stock Growers held their summer meeting. But obviously we're down here. This is really one of the busiest times of the year for cattle producers, aside from the annual convention, because this is really where the policy creation really starts to take shape.
Yeah, this is when you talk about NCBA being grassroots, this is the definition of it. You've got all of the various state associations coming together, and then producers coming here and putting ideas in for shaping policy for the future direction of the organization. This is where the hamburger gets made, and it's a wonderful process because you can literally see an idea come out of a local cattlemen's association and watch it go all the way up to national policy, and then we put it into action, and may end up with a new regulatory change, or it may end up with a law change.
And just this morning during the regional meetings, fake meat was one of those top issues. Colin Woodall, CEO of NCBA and immediate past president of NCBA, Donnie Schiefelbein, stepped in, and we're talking about fake meat, the efforts to label it correctly. I guess, what are the efforts of NCBA to, what are those current efforts to make sure that real beef is represented well, and that fake meat, the lab-grown meat to be exact, doesn't take away that market share or take away the hard work that cattle producers have put into promoting that real product?
Absolutely, and you know, I've got to preface my remarks by saying I'm not even going to give this stuff the credibility of using the term meat behind the word fake, because I don't think it's on the same level. You know, we dealt with the plant-based stuff, and the consumer has proved that that's not going to get any legs, and that's falling by the wayside. But this cell-cultured product is troublesome. Again, I tell producers this is my area of biggest concern, looking in the horizon 10 years, with the money that is pouring into this. From the Bill Gates of the world and the Richard Bransons of the world. And then you got the animal activists jumping all over this. They see this as as a way to solve all the woke issues in the country. So where are we at? We're working this legislatively very hard right now. In fact, as we speak today, I think there are 4 different bills in DC dealing with this. 2 of them are being debated as we are sitting here, and those bills are trying to differentiate this product. You know, we got used to dealing with the soybean type product or all the other products that they put into it, the Beyond Meat thing. We got used to differentiating that. Cell-based products are a totally different kettle of fish, and we have to treat it differently, and we have to define it differently. You know, they want to be called cultured meat, and if we let that happen, cultured meat, you know, that's a problem because that sounds like a product that would come from a farm, and if you get a mislabel like that, that consumer going to that meat counter is going to see a package of ground beef. Well, suddenly that ground beef product is not going to be differentiated from that other goop that they're trying to pass off that they grow in a big vat. So we're dealing with this legislatively, and we're also dealing with this on a regulatory basis. So we're dealing with FDA and FSIS to make sure that the labeling gets correct. But we're having to force the regulatory issue through legislative.
Petri dish protein, PDP.
There you go. I like that.
And obviously, that's something we will continue to closely to talk about and watch. And again, a big talking point here at the convention. And also, with some of the challenges, we've seen some successes, but some frustrations. Of course, you and I, over the past few weeks, have talked about the Sackett v. EPA case, which was a big win for the agriculture community and landowner groups and those that are opposing the overreach of federal government. But we've also had some challenges when, even though that significant nexus test has been, the high court said you can't use that EPA, the EPA continues to push forward with this rule or hold it, and we are seeing a rewrite taking place currently. But what are some of the challenges, frustrations, and what is NCBA's take on all this right now? What's the work NCBA is doing on the rewrite of that WOTUS rule?
Yeah, isn't it ironic that we end up with a 9-0 Supreme Court decision that totally guts EPA's proposed Biden rule that they rolled out, and yet the EPA comes back and says, oh, we just need to make a minor tweak to the rule, even though the whole significant nexus test is out the window. EPA doesn't want to admit that their proposed rule has no legal foundation. So we went in. We obviously fought in the Texas courts and in the North Dakota courts trying to get this whole thing held up. The judges in those cases are allowing the EPA to go in and tweak the rule. Frankly, I think that's not even possible. But the EPA doesn't want to admit defeat. It doesn't seem like there really needs to be any substance in law anymore. It's just these regulatory agencies just go out, whether it's BLM, whether it's EPA, everybody just goes out and does their own thing. And then what does that force the producer do? What does NCBA have to do? We have to be back into court. And you wonder how you spend the quantity of money in a courtroom that you do, but when you have to go in and fight every single issue, but if we don't fight it, nobody else is. It is NCBA on the front line, in there in the trenches, fighting these legal challenges, and we will not give up on WOTUS because that is a huge land grab. And ultimately, I know that EPA is going to lose if they come out with a new rule that isn't sufficiently based. What are we going to do? We're going to challenge it in court again. The frustrating part of that, to me, is that we're wasting money to prove that we're right, but that's the only way to succeed.
My last area, of course, there's a lot of contention in terms of Brazilian beef coming into the United States. There's been a big call from all livestock and agriculture groups to halt that beef due to foot and mouth disease concerns and the atypical cases of bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or BSE. Obviously, there's not a correct Brazil hasn't been reporting those correctly. USDA still has not stopped those or really considered that. What are some frustrations and what's the work on that front of halting those Brazilian imports?
Yeah, you hit a hot button for me, because I tell you, this Brazilian deal just accentuates how out of touch Secretary Vilsack is with America's producers, because all the cattle groups joined together. Farm Bureau joined with us. We were all calling for a ban. Brazil just ignores the rules. The rest of the world operates by a set of rules where we have to report an atypical case, and it has to be done with certain parameters. Brazil doesn't care. This is the 6th or 7th time that they have demonstrated over the years that the rules apparently doesn't apply to them. And yet we can't get our secretary, and this doesn't take legislation. This is a stroke of the pen type thing for the Secretary of Ag to be able to rectify this situation. And again, this is not an issue that's contentious among cattle producers. We're all in agreement on this, and yet we can't even get Secretary Vilsack to pick up the phone and talk to us about this issue.
Well, again, I just wanted to touch on that just a little bit, but Todd, I know you have a very busy day here, so I just want to thank you for joining us. And friends, we'll continue to have more conversations from San Diego here. Our coverage brought to you by our friends at AgRisk Advisors. More conversations, as I mentioned, to come here from San Diego at the Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting.
Well, during agricultural conventions that we attend throughout the year, not just in Western Ag Network country, but across America, it's always good to see some old friends from back home. And here in San Diego, California this week, it's been fun to catch up with a few from Western Ag Network country, and one of those is joining us now. Andy Kellum from Hobson, Montana, of course, a longtime member of the Montana Beef Council. And on a national level, he also has a presence on the Federation of State Beef Councils board. And Andy, thank you for joining us from here in sunny and beautiful San Diego, California. We just kind of wrapped up the Region 5 update just a few minutes ago, and you're the co-chair of that committee. Talk a little bit about why it's important that the different regions, I guess, have that opportunity to break out. And I guess more importantly for this interview, talk about the fact we're celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Federation of State Beef Councils, which a lot of folks may or may not know.
Russell, thanks for the opportunity. It's really great to be here. Get away from home in the middle of the summer. It's always tough at the end of July to get away from home, but we're here to do the work on behalf of the checkoff. And so this morning, our Region 5 meeting, it's a place to interact with the people from our region. So 5 states, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado. Sorry, 6 states. And so we take a little deeper dive into the specific things, both on the policy side and on the federation side that are happening in those states. And 60 years. The Federation of State Beef Councils was established in 1963. So that actually, the Federation was established long before we actually had a national checkoff, which came in with the Farm Bill in 1985. So been at it for 60 years, had some great projects over the years, and continue to have some great projects today.
Absolutely, and a lot of good work going on behalf of producers and their checkoff dollars, and of course delivering that important message about what on-the-ground producers like yourself are doing every single day on farms and ranches across America through that beef checkoff investment. And you actually had quite a few great examples of some really good projects going on from just Region 5. Just a snapshot, though, of really what is taking place across the entire country. But tell us about some of those highlights out of Region 5, because there's some dandies.
Absolutely. Yeah, Russell, the first thing I will say is that, this is truly a grassroots program. Like, it's people from across the region, from across the country that are producers. And we are the people that have the voice that direct these programs. And that's one thing that I like to try to take home is we have the input. And I encourage, producers that are on these boards in Montana, in Idaho, in Nevada, wherever they're at, that this is a great opportunity to speak up. But some of the projects in Region 5 that are collaborating on with the Federation in Washington. they worked with NCBA staff to put together an article that made it to the Seattle Times, showcasing one of their ranching families and the stewardship that they have promoted on both public and private land to show that cattle ranching and recreation can both happen and they can both work together. So, kind of a sustainability message there, but also a stewardship message. And they put together a really nice article, made it into the Seattle Times, into a huge consumer market, and they estimate that's gathered over 3 million consumer impressions. So just a huge reach. And the staff in the state of Washington is able to work with the staff at NCBA and the Federation to really get that out there. It's kind of daunting, if you're just a staff member from a state like Montana, a state like Washington, and we can use our relationship with these national level staff of the Federation to really promote a program like this. In Wyoming, they have for 5 years, they have taken some of their dollars. Now, Wyoming's a state that the cows outnumber people over 2 to 1. And so they take some of their dollars and they go to states where the people outnumber the cattle 30 or 40 to 1. And so they take some of their state dollars and they go to these highly populated states and they work to extend the summer drilling campaign, push it out there just a little bit further. And they've found tremendous value in that and will continue to find value in that. So that's just a couple of the projects that are happening. In Montana, we have used our relationship with the Federation and what they call Federation services. So we use IT expertise to manage our website. We don't go hire a third party to do that. It'd be much more expensive to do it that way. And then we also use them for promotional material that we'll distribute both to consumers, but we also use that with our communication with producers back home. So again, we're able to use that relationship and save some dollars, but get our message out there.
Well, and again, these are just a few great examples of what's happening out of Region 5, and what you just talked about truly is happening every single day across America. You kind of mentioned it earlier, Andy, but it really is driven by grassroots involvement, grassroots policy, a grassroots mentality, and folks like you that make that commitment to step up and volunteer for positions, whether it's back home on state beef councils or on a national level on the Federation. You truly pour your hearts and souls into this process and making sure that every dollar that's collected is properly invested.
Absolutely, Russell. And what we're getting ready to do tomorrow, we'll go into our committee meetings tomorrow, and that is really where you can see the grassroots effort coming out of the woods, right? We'll be around tables, a room full of us on each committee, and we'll hear from the contractors who are asking, they're submitting an authorization request to ask for dollars from the checkoff to administer programs. And so we're going to hear from them about the programs that they have been running through the last year, and then what they intend to do over the next year. And then we provide feedback to them. We tell them, we like this, we don't like this. Here's an area we really think you're doing well. Here's an area that we think that maybe you could do a little better. And just try to continue to follow the long range plan, which is revisited every 5 years, and make sure that the contractors are following the long range plan, but then make sure that, just like you said, that we're getting our bang for our buck with our checkoff dollars. These are dollars that are becoming fewer and fewer as we see a national cow herd contract, and we're having lots of conversations about that budget, but we want to make sure that we do the absolute best we can with the dollars that we have to work with.
Hey, before I let you out of the hot seat, I know your time is definitely starting to wind down a little bit, not just back at home, but also on the national level as far as your commitment. What's your advice? Would you encourage others to throw their names and their hats in the ring and do like you and so many others before you have done and step up and actively have a voice and participate in their industry on boards like this?
Absolutely, Russell. This has been a great experience for me. I've been a member of the Montana Beef Council for 7 years, and I've been a Federation Director for 5, and then Region 5 Vice President for 2. So that term comes up next year, and then I got 2 years left on the Montana Beef Council, and then I'll be termed out there. And it's been a very, it's been a very rewarding experience for me. I think it, on a personal level, it helps open my eyes, broaden the horizons a little bit. But I'm proud to work for the producers of Montana and for the producers in the United States on these things. And we definitely need, we need more people to step up and continue to push these programs forward. And I my encouragement to anyone out there who's interested is, you know what, just show up. That's the number one thing. If you're interested and you want to participate, show up. That's the number one thing. And I think there's a great opportunity out there for anyone that would like to do that.
Well, we appreciate your time and your commitment and all of everything that you volunteered over the years, and for taking a little bit of time to join us on this segment from here in San Diego.
Absolutely, Russell.
Thank you, sir. Again, we've been visiting with Andy Kellum, a member of the Montana Beef Council from Hobson, and he's also a member of the Federation of State Beef Councils. Always great to catch up with industry leaders like him and so many others at conventions like the Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting here in San Diego, California. By the way, we certainly want to say a big thank you to our friends at AgRisk Advisors for sponsoring our coverage this week here from Southern California. We couldn't do it without them. And be sure to join us both on the radio and on television, and I guess online for more of these updates in the coming days and weeks ahead. Now, for more information about your Beef Checkoff program, whether you're a producer or a consumer out there, one of the best resources there that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year long is swhatsfordinner.com. Well, one of this year's featured speakers here in San Diego at the 2023 Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting was a crowd favorite, Randy Block, the Chief Executive Officer of CattleFax. And Randy, higher markets and green grass in a lot of America certainly helps drive optimism, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And, the bottom line is there hasn't been any profitability to speak of at the cow-calf level for really since 2015. So this is a long overdue drought, not only from a weather precipitation standpoint, but a profitability standpoint. So we need to be able to sustain some profitability at our cow-calf and seed stock levels. We're having a wonderful year at our grazing and our growing levels. Our finishing yards are having a very good year. This will actually be the second best profit year as we would measure it in the history of the industry. That's saying something. This is one we've needed.
Absolutely. One of your slides, many of just one of your slides, showed that the profitability versus 1 year ago for the cow-calf sector is something like 41% higher on those steer prices.
We're seeing feeder cattle prices. If you look at the value of an 850-pound steer, or a 900-pound steer, or 5.5 weight steer, 700-pound steer, or heifer prices, they're all 40 to 42% higher than the same week a year ago. So phenomenal change. If you think about it, even from a fed cattle market standpoint, a year ago at this time period, we were basically selling fed cattle right in here in the mid 30s. And we're selling them today up closer to 180. So, and it's been a nice run. It's coming a little bit faster than I would have expected as far as the rate of change, because we're still not really seeing expansion take place. It's not happening yet, but the market's certainly got some optimism.
Well, that's what I was just going to follow up with. What did you glean out of the most recent cattle inventory report showing another 3% reduction in the nation's cow herd overall and in the beef cow number?
Well, I think if you look at those numbers in total, there really were no surprises in the report. We expected all those categories to be down 2 to 3%. Smallest July 1 beef cow number since 1971. You got to go all the way back to that time period. That's the latest data that I've seen on it. So again, you're looking at it more than a 50-year low. We'll see the beef cow numbers on January 1, 3 million head smaller than they were at the peak in 2019. So all of this just is fast forward, we're going to see that many fewer fed cattle come through the system. We're looking at 1.2 million fewer fed cattle next year, another million head smaller in 2025. So unfortunately, that's what happens when we go through these drought-driven scenarios. I mean, it's feast or famine, and we've been on both ends of it. But again, you're going to see the price signal get pretty stout to encourage people to retain heifers and rebuild this herd.
Well, that's what I just wanted to ask next. I mean, we are right smack dab now in the middle and the heart of the summer video sale season, and these prices for 400, 500, 600-pound fall delivered steers are just incredible. So given everything that you've just mentioned, what does the rest of this year look like? And as we move into 2024, thinking about next year's calf crop?
Well, we've priced in a lot of the move for this year. You know, the calf prices, pretty typical in these summer videos, they'll get pretty hot. And again, this year they have been very, very stout. You know, a lot of calves either side of $300. Again, you've seen a lot of feeder cattle, 8.5 to 9.5 weight feeders that have been bringing from 245 to 250 up to 255. You know, some of the program cattle higher than that. So you look out here and you look at the way the markets are moving and say, well, gosh, they're just too high. But they're actually, if you pencil in what we believe are going to be significantly cheaper cost of gains, if these do materialize as we anticipate they will by the fourth quarter, there's actually going to be some margin in some of these lighter weight cattle. I mean, there's the big yearling cattle, we're bidding it all away, but there actually is margin for some of these growing cattle as we go down the road. But again, when you think about what we have to do, per capita beef supplies are down 2 pounds this year, they're down 3 pounds next year. Retail and wholesale prices will have to go up significantly to ration that smaller per capita supply. There's just not enough of it out there to satisfy the current demand that we have that continues to be so robust. So higher prices will do some rationing, no doubt about it.
Last question, then I'll let you go. I mean, we can raise all the high quality beef across the countryside as we want, but the other main factor is we still have extremely strong consumer demand at the meat case, and they truly are demanding high quality beef.
I mean, the data could be no clearer. I mean, that's really what's driven this whole price move. It's been beef demand. And again, we've been on the other side of that in the 1980s and the 1990s where beef demand was horrible. And the industry took the bull by the horns, so to speak, got focused on quality. We went from producing animals that were a flip of the coin on whether they would be choice or select. That's really all we were producing then. And the consumer had already told us in those days that 1 out of 4 eating experiences with the steak was a poor eating experience. So they'd given up on the industry in the 80s and 90s. Today, consumer satisfaction is at the highest level on record. Demand for choice, upper 2/3 choice, and prime is so strong and robust. Consumers are willing to pay for this beef with the butter in it. And I hope as an industry, as we go through this rebuilding phase, we stay focused on building and developing more of those high quality animals that will continue to meet what the consumer, not only in the U.S., but around the globe, is demanding from U.S., the largest supplier on the planet.
Absolutely. As always, Randy, thank you for your time and
My
giving us
pleasure.
some great market insight and analysis. And for more of that, you can always visit CattleFacts online at cattlefacts.com.
As we come back to the cattle industry summer business meeting here in San Diego, again, our coverage brought to you by our friends at AgRisk Advisors. For more of those risk management tools, visit AgRisk Advisors online. Well, as we're out on the road, we're catching up with cattlemen and women from across Western Ag Network country, and joining us is Robert Farnham. He is the newest president of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association. They just wrapped up their convention in Steamboat Springs just a few short weeks ago. And Robert, we just stepped out of the Region 5 meeting where cattle producers from across the West were gathering, listening to all the issues. And I guess what's that mean, to just sit down and hear about similar issues but different issues impacting Western producers?
A lot of our issues are the same. A lot of them are good, a lot of them are bad. This is probably the first time, most of our areas all been under pretty good moisture, but our biggest challenges are becoming with the BLM, what we have to do with permittees that are not raising livestock on those permits and be able to take those permits and retire them or use them as a conservation tool to take cattle off those permits. And so between our whole region, between Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado, we all have those same issues that are going to affect us.
Yep. Well, and of course, you hail from Brush, Colorado there. What's it been like weather-wise and here in summer of 2023, just to see on the producer end of things?
More moisture than we've ever had, I think I can ever remember, but more moisture than we had in the last 4 years. One of the great things is that we got grass that's belly deep, but with that, we've had severe storms from hail, tornadoes. We've had neighbor's barn get lifted up about 4 miles away from us and land on another neighbor's about 8 miles up the road from us. And we've had damages to our house and shop and everything else, but I'll take this over drought any day.
I was actually stuck in the Denver airport when all those tornadoes the first round hit. That wasn't too fun, but
No.
I made it home.
My wife called me. I was coming back from Kansas, and the first 2 tornadoes that touched down next to the ranch, and she's like, "Should I go anywhere?" I was like, "I'd just stay home, honey. Get out in the vehicle. You never know what you're going to run into anymore."
Well, there's a lot of issues that we talk about on the Western Ag Network impacting Colorado producers. We talk a lot about the wolves and the wolf reintroduction and that plan, but one that has resurfaced, of course, is the proposed slaughter ban in the county of Denver and the city of Denver. What are some of the concerns that Colorado Cattlemen's has on that, and some of the efforts just to bring awareness to the vital pipeline that these processing facilities have for the economy and just keeping America fed?
Well, if it happens in the city of Denver or the county of Denver, it's just one other metropolis, in Omaha may be able to have to do it. So you're setting a template for other geographic cities in different states that have kind of same issues with the rural-urban divide that we have in Colorado with our growth. And, all across the western United States, you're going to have, we're so rural in most of these states, but you're going to have metropolises that control our voting population. And if you allow one city and a county to do this and we don't fight hard against it, it's just going to be a domino effect. The next will be Portland, what they do to Oregon, or Seattle maybe do to Washington. And so that's our big fear, not only from what we do on the policy side and what that template that sets, but 2 is as we go through what it does to our lamb industry. I know we're here for a cattlemen's convention, but Superior Lamb Processing is the largest lamb processor in the United States, if I'm correct. But that's a huge pipeline for West United States. A lot of our cattle producers are lamb producers too out of West United States. So.
Well, and you look at all the efforts that Colorado producers from various livestock associations just a few years ago came together for the Meat In movement when there was an effort on the state level to have that meat out day. How important is it to not just come together for one time or multiple times for something like that? How important is it for livestock producers, farmers, and ranchers to support each other all the time, just like we saw there for that Meat In movement?
It's huge. I mean, this will be year 3. We have done it within the state and everything else, and we still have across our whole state venues that did it again this past year. And we have great turnout. And I think Sterling Livestock Commission up in our part of the neck of the woods, I think they raised another $100,000 at a meet-in event that will go and they'll donate to needy kids for toys and clothing and boots and everything else. But it's a camaraderie that you have as an industry, and we're a small enough industry, we got to have each other's back. I don't care if it's, eastern Colorado to western Oregon. Our differences are drastically in how we probably raise cattle and what we do, but our problems are pretty close to the same, and we got to protect each other.
Well, our last, just a question for you. We had these regional meetings, we have policy creation here. How important is it to have that regional input and then take that to the big policy committees for all cattle producers outside of the western U.S. to have everybody's back, like we were just talking about, whether you're in eastern or western Colorado? This is the entire United States. How important is this policy book that NCBA has?
Oh, it's very important because, you know, what affects us here is obviously different than what affects in Florida. But at the end of the day, I need the Florida cattlemen and their congressional leaders to help us tackle all these issues. And no difference when they're facing, you know, XYZ and their part of the neck of the woods. You know, they need our representatives and our legislators to come through and battle for them. So I think at the end of the day, we have a lot of differences, but we all have the commonality of keeping our industry strong.
Again, Robert Farnham, he is the president of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association. We're going to continue to have more conversations from here in San Diego from the Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting throughout the week. Again, multiple issues impacting producers not only in Western Ag Network country, but across the nation being worked on this week here in San Diego. And of course, a big thank you to AgRisk Advisors for helping us bring this coverage to you back home from here in San Diego.
And Lane, from here in San Diego, it's onward to Orlando for the 2024 Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, running January 31st through February 2nd in Florida. For more details or to get signed up, registration and more information becomes available on August 15th. Just visit convention.ncba.org.
That's right. And for more of our full-length conversations with cattlemen and women this week, just visit us on YouTube and westernagnetwork.com. On behalf of Russell Nimitz and the entire Western Ag Network crew, reporting from the Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting in San Diego, I'm Lane Nordlund.
On the road with the Western Ag Network. Brought to you by AgRisk Advisors.